How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We've got Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly here, and we're going to have Chris Ford, CROWBAR, Devon Storm. He's all of the above. He'll be up here in about a half an hour, formerly of WCW, and we'll be talking about the landscape of professional wrestling. He recently had a WWF tryout, so we can talk about he's going to wrestle. He's wrestling all over the indies right now. It's a physical therapy degree. We can talk a little bit about that as well. Just all of that good stuff.
Actually, guys, just wanted to jump in real quick. We'll probably have him sometime around 6. He's actually on his way in from New Jersey into New York City right now. He's got some benefit thing that he's doing. He called me twice. He told me, I know you had a no-show this week. I will be on. Don't worry. So we may have him probably towards the top of the next hour.
Okay, cool. Well, glad we know that. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. I guess we will start with the big news, and that is that the scheduled relaunching of the WCW brand name has been postponed indefinitely. It was originally supposed to be starting back on TNN on June the 9th and live at the Patriot Center in Fairfax, Virginia on June the 9th. And they had dates booked. They had dates booked for the whole month of June, and all of those dates have now been canceled, and there is no scheduled relaunch date right now. So I think it's a concession to reality. I think that they recognize that you don't get a second chance to make a first impression in that time slot. I think they learned from the XFL that you better be ready rather than get out there on a certain deadline. And clearly they didn't feel that they were going to be ready on June the 9th. Things coming together very slowly. And Jim Ross is down in Atlanta right now meeting with different people. And I think maybe the feeling is that enough of those guys, they're going to be able to get them at some point, and why start without them? I guess that's the only thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating on the reasons why. I was just told basically about an hour ago that they canceled all the dates and that there is no start date for that new division.
I think it's a smart thing to do. I mean, we talked about it before when they first moved the date. You know, why start? You know, why rush into it, especially with a time slot like that, especially when, you know, everybody pretty much knows that Goldberg's going to be really important, and probably Ric Flair, and, I mean, they don't even know if they have Booker T yet or anything like that, and they got 24 guys. It's just kind of interesting that after one day of meetings, this decision came down, but I guess, you know, the meetings probably had nothing to do with it. It was probably something they've been thinking about for a while.
I think it was one of those things where, you know, hey, it's 7 weeks to go, and, you know, we have nobody under contract that's a main eventer.
Yeah.
And TBS is dragging its feet, and, you know, and they, you know, I mean, you know, I think some of those names that you mentioned, I think that they're just, the reality is they're not going to get, but, you know, maybe they're going to, you know, they've got to make a decision too, you know, and Bill Goldberg's a key decision to make, because it's a big financial, what's the word I'm looking for? To take
investment.
him. You know, it's a big investment to take him, but by not taking him, you're kind of telling the fans the story that we really don't have the WCW A team. We can have a better team, but we're not going to spend for it. And I don't know that that's the right decision. I don't know if the fans will think of it that way, but, you know, he will be noticed not being there. I mean, it'll be a void. And so, and, you know, people will be asking questions as to why, and the reason why is that they're not willing to spend the money. And it's a lot of money, I mean, especially right now. But, and, you know,
I seriously think that in the end, they're going to take him. And my two reasons for that are, A, they made an exception for the Big Show of all people. It wasn't an exception as big as Goldberg's, obviously, but it was an exception. And they figured that he was a guy that had a huge upside.
They thought they had Andre the Giant.
Ended up being a huge backside. What was that?
They thought they had Andre the Giant, and then they realized about 2 weeks in that they didn't.
Yeah, so, I mean, they made an exception for him. I don't see why they couldn't make another exception for Goldberg when they really think that it's going to be $3 million a year, but without Goldberg, what's that company going to make? You know, what's the profit going to be? Can they really create... I mean, is it really going to be something that people are going to watch if they expect Goldberg to be there? He's never there. I mean, it's going to be something where, in the long run, that $3 million may be the best investment that they can make for that company.
The fans will realize by the third week that he's not there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're not going to be, you know, if he's not... Because one of the things the WWF will do is they won't mention his name, and once they don't mention his name, people go, aha, he's not there. I mean, they're not going to go in there and say, oh, by the way, Bill Goldberg is coming soon when he's not under contract, and then after about 8 weeks, people go, hey, when's he coming? and then realize, they're not going to build people up for something that they're not going to deliver. Usually. They did make that exception on that one night when Vince did that interview where he was talking about all those guys that he wasn't planning on delivering. I thought that is so not WWF to do that.
You know what, though? If you ever look at some of the letters that we receive, and I guess letters that pretty much everybody receives, now that Vince has said the name Goldberg, even one time, till the end of time, people will always be expecting Goldberg to finally come in.
Yeah. Some of the letters we receive. It's a very interesting thing. Let's see. Also want to make mention that in the LA Times, Vince McMahon did an interview with the LA Times and said that NBC would not be back for the second season of the XFL, and didn't really say much more other than that the league would continue. And I think that what I found so interesting about that is remember it was Russian Malloy who had the big thing, and it's been written before, that NBC had already made the decision. By the third week of the season, I had gotten emails from people close to NBC going, just so you know, they've already made the decision. I mean, it's like the third week of the season they were telling me that. I mean, it didn't work as a Saturday night property. And, all through this time, everyone's denying, right? Even Bob Wright, what was the last time? Wasn't it like 2 weeks ago? It was the day after the Russian Malloy thing where Bob Wright was out there saying, oh, no, we're going to be back next year. We have everyone, and I'm just thinking, remember on the show, I go, why is he even saying this? Because we all knew by then that, they certainly had made the decision. There was no way they could bring that thing back for next season.
Yeah.
Brian, by the way, did you see the LA article? I sent it over to you, or you have a chance to see the
No, I
show?
didn't get it yet.
Okay. I got to tell you, it had the same stuff that in every article I send you, about the XFL, about how, the Saturday night ratings aren't good, but, UPN and TNN ratings are. And it's like, how long do we have to read that?
Yeah. What do they consider a bad rating at this point?
Well, no, it's not that. It's that, none of the writers actually looked the number up, because the NBC numbers got so much publicity that you can't fudge on them. But the other numbers got no publicity, especially the TNN numbers. Because they're almost impossible to come by. But, if you look for them, you can find them. And nobody bothers to look except for Alex Marvez and me. But the thing that I thought in McMahon's thing is, and think about this, okay? His statement was that next season they are going to broadcast all of their games at 1 and 4 p.m. on Sundays, because that is the traditional football time slot.
Oh,
okay?
Yes.
Okay, now, but think about this. They broadcasted games every week this past season at 1 and 4 p.m. on Sundays. And what ratings did they draw?
Hideous.
So why would that be? The ratings were, let's see, the last UPN rating for the playoff game the other night, which will be the last game that they air, did an 0.7. Okay? So they do less than half on Sunday nights of what they do on Saturday nights. Okay? Which somehow, even to this day, I still get letters from people going like, hey, what was that letter? The one did you read the one the other day? The one that was trying to explain why Sunday's also now a bad night?
Oh, yeah, the whole weekend was a bad time for sporting events.
The weekend is so bad.
It wasn't just Sunday or Saturday anymore. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, and you know what's, I want to say that, one more thing about that. I hate excuses, but when they used to run wrestling every Monday night in San Jose when I was in high school, okay, and this would be, and they drew horribly because we had a very poor promotion that was running here for the most part. Although Perro Aguayo used to come all the time, but that's before anyone up here who knew who Perro Aguayo was, even though he was a legend in Mexico. But they drew really poorly, and the promoter worked with me. The guy who promoted the shows worked with me on the San Jose Earthquakes, which was a soccer team that I worked in the front office for one season. And he would go, you know what the problem
San
is?
San Jose Earthquakes?
What about, you don't know about this? You don't know about sports.
I think that's a funny name for a sporting team in California. I'm sure that's why they named it that.
Actually, I think the team is called the Earthquakes again. They were called something else.
There's a minor league baseball team that's out in California. I believe they're the Rancho Cucamonga
Cucamonga Earthquakes. Yeah. And but I think there was San Jose Clash, I think is what they were called, and then they changed their name to the Earthquakes because the Earthquakes is the traditional name. Because actually, when I was working there, they drew tremendous crowds. I mean, we averaged somewhere between 13,000 and 17,000 per game, for the first 3 or 4 seasons of that team, which is tremendous for soccer. But But anyway, it'd been tremendous for the XFL if it was all paid too. But anyway, well, that reminds me of something too. This is like now we're getting totally away from wrestling, but there was a day. Remember, Brian? You don't know this either. We're talking sports. Okay. Anyway, there was a baseball strike. One of the years that one of the times I was working for the Earthquakes, there was a baseball strike, so there were no games, and so all the baseball writers and the major sports personalities remind me to get back to the Monday night story because there is actually a payoff in all this. But anyway, so all the sports personalities that had no idea what soccer was, even though we were drawing 13 to 17,000 a game. They grew up with baseball and football. They only knew that. They never went to a soccer game. The fact that soccer actually, at that point in time, was actually kind of popular in this market, it meant nothing to them because they didn't grow up with it, even though and our games were filled with kids, because that's what it was marketed towards. Well, anyway, a bunch of them, there was a guy, Pete Liebengood, who was a guy on Channel 4, comes up to me. And he came down for a game. There were like 15, 16,000 people on a Sunday afternoon, which is what we drew every Sunday afternoon when we had a game, right? And he just goes, and the building holds like Spartan Stadium where they played, held like 18,000. So it's just about sold out, okay? And we frequently sold out the games. So he comes up to me and he goes, man, now that there's no baseball, everyone's coming to soccer. Okay. So anyway, let me go back to the Monday story. Which actually will have to do with wrestling in two ways. Number one, they never drew on Monday nights, and the promoter also worked in the front office of the Earthquakes with me, and he came up to me, and he didn't really know I was a wrestling fan much, but he knew because I would sometimes show up at the matches. He came up to me and he just goes, it's just death. We can't promote. You know what the problem is? And I go, yeah, you have no talent. All the good talent is the stuff that people see on Georgia Championship Wrestling because that's when it was hot. And that's what the people want to see here. And unfortunately, you can't afford to bring them in. You're bringing in these guys that nobody wants to see, so no one's going. He goes, and he just like looks at me and he just goes, no, it's Monday night. You can't draw for anybody on Monday night because of Monday Night Football. And I go, well, what about those 39 weeks of the year where there is no Monday Night Football? Okay. So anyway, and for years, I remember when people would go, you can't, and isn't it interesting about how Monday night, the night that you absolutely could not draw for any kind of a sporting event or any male-oriented television, ended up being wrestling night for several years when wrestling got hot, even with Monday Night Football. And it's like, this is the whole point. People before, would just
and according to many of those articles you've been complaining about, it actually beat football.
That's another story. No, but the whole thing is if you've got a product that people want to see, they will find it. And if you don't, you could always, that's the Paul Bosch thing. Paul Bosch once, when he did Terrible House. Have I ever told the Paul Bosch story here on the air?
I don't know.
Paul Bosch was promoter in Houston, Texas. One time he drew about 2,000 to 3,000 people for a house show, which was a pretty bad show. And he starts doing this, I think I called him up, or maybe he called me up. This is in the mid-'80s. And he starts going like, it was the end of the month, so the people are running out of money, because, like people live week to week that are wrestling fans theoretically, right? And then he starts going about how, 1 week our TV was started 30 minutes late because the baseball went in extra innings, and we changed this, and we did this, and we did this. And he goes through this litany of lists of reasons why they didn't draw. And then he just stops and just goes, I wanted to tell you all of this right now, so you never believe any of these things again when every promoter tells you for the rest of your life. And he goes, the reason we didn't draw is because I booked a main event that nobody wanted to see.
Yep.
And I've always remembered those words. Anyway, how's Penthouse doing, Brian?
That actually reminds me of something. The whole thing with a lot of those articles, sometimes I'll read like 4 or 5 XFL articles. And the thing is with a lot of articles is there's a lot of content that is not original. And that is, a lot of newspapers will just go to another newspaper, they'll go to the AP, and they'll basically write the same story. So all it takes is one guy saying that the TNN and the UPN ratings are low, and all of a sudden it's like going to be in every single newspaper that you read. Because I guess everybody just assumes that if it made it to the newspaper, it's got to be true. Kind of like wrestling news on the internet. But the thing was, this happened to me with Penthouse. I would write an article, I think I told you about this, and I was doing one on wrestling facts. And one of the facts was the Pontiac Silverdome. And of course, I had to write, 87,000 or whatever, 78,000, whatever the number was. And they wanted backup, and the backup they wanted was from, like, the PWI Almanac, which, of course, said 93,000 fans. So I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, right then, I understood why, in all of these mainstream articles, the facts are so bad. A, it's people that don't do any research. B, it's people that use another article that has inaccurate research to write their article. And C, it's getting backup from places like the PWI Almanac, which just totally screws everything up. So here I am, having to write this article for Penthouse Magazine with my name on it, and there's the 93,000 figure, and I just went, well, you know, whatever. But the Penthouse deal is now done, because basically, this is what they told me. The WWF will not cooperate with them, and therefore, since all that's left is the WWF, there really can't be much of a Penthouse column anymore. So it's finished. And I was sad for about 1 second, because let me tell you, those weeks when I had to do a Penthouse column and wrestle on the weekend and do the newsletter were the most hellish weeks of my life. But it was fun, and they were cool about it, and they said if I wanted a reference to get a job in another magazine or whatever, I could do that. So that's it.
Okay. It's too bad, though. You know, I mean, it's good exposure.
Yeah, it was good exposure, and it was a lot of fun, but it got to be so hard at the end. Just having to do them, you know, like every 2 weeks. You know, and the fact checkers, yes. The fact checkers was another fun one.
The fact checking bothered me just because it was like, you know, it's one thing if you kind of like don't know your subject and you have to check your facts, but I mean, with you, what would happen is the fact checkers, and then the 93,000 is the perfect example of this, is that you would have it right, and the fact checkers would get it wrong because everybody else was wrong.
Yeah, and the fact checkers would like be searching around on the internet for this stuff, and God knows what you're going to find on the internet as far as, you know, attendance figures and everything like that. My favorite one ever as far as the fact checkers, one day I got this call. I was doing an article on women in wrestling, and Jasmine St. Clair was one of them. And, of course, it's Penthouse, so they want all the details and everything. So she, of course, did the movie The World's Biggest Gangbang. So I write it about in the column and everything like that. And one day this old dude calls me, one of the fact checkers. He's got to be like 85 years old. He sounds so old. And he basically says, you've got this thing here in the article, a movie called The World's Biggest Gangbang. And we were wondering, was that a porn film or was that a theatrical release? I just thought to myself, yes, that was playing next to Bambi, the 4:30 showing and the 7:30 showing as a double feature. The World's Biggest Gangbang and Bambi. Theatrical release.
By the way, in the LA Times article, Vince claimed that the UPN, you know, remember how we were talking about like the percentage of increase on UPN of their regular programming?
Yeah.
You know, of the XFL? He did come up with a number. It was 85%.
Oh, wow.
You got to see this article. I mean, and that's LA Times. I think that's what's scary. And the guy who's writing it is like a top-notch football writer. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what made it like the saddest thing is I'm reading this and it's got every mistake that every single article has. And, you know, Vince saying that thing. And it's like, you know, it's one thing if like Vince, you know, says, well, we're going to be back next year and we're going to be bigger and better than ever, and you quote him, and that's cool. I mean, he may be wrong, he may be right. But when it's like certain like numbers that are like real numbers and they just go in, you know, like Vince says them, or it doesn't even have to be Vince. I mean, because, you know, Vince probably did say about those other, but, you know, like when they talk about the ratings on the other stations and you just like throw them in there and you don't even, it's just so. It's so weird.
Well, it's just one of those things where I could just see, like, the editors going, okay, you're telling us that UPN had no programming, but here's Vince McMahon telling you that, yes, it's up 85%. It's just like, remember that we did the article on women in wrestling? This was another one. And I had a little thing on Maria, because it was a whole deal about, first she was Reno and Vito's sister, whatever.
And later she was Maria.
Yeah, they called me up and they go, we just contacted World Championship Wrestling. They do not know any character named Marie. And I said, look, I've seen this girl on TV, you know, for the past 3 weeks now. I know she exists. And they go, no, they don't know who she is. And so, therefore, Marie did not end up in the article.
I remember that one, too. That was just hilarious.
Oh, my.
This is the poll question for yesterday. How do you feel about the Backlash main event of Undertaker and Kane versus Triple H and Austin? 47% said that they will order it because they always order WF pay-per-views, which is where I guess I fit in. 2% said they will order it because they like the match. 1% said they will order it because all the belts are at stake in the match. God damn, maybe Jeff Hardy didn't need to lose. I don't know. 36% said they will not order this pay-per-view specifically because of that match. and 14% say they don't watch W pay-per-views anyway, so that's why they're not going to be watching this one. Let's see, where is today's question? This is our Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, and Chris Benoit ready for true main event status. A, only Angle, B, only Benoit, C, only Jericho, D, at least 2, if not all 3, and E, none of them. Let me see what else we got here. I guess the Fukuoka Dome, they're going to announce tomorrow, or maybe even tonight. Tomorrow, I take that back. Tomorrow they're going to be having a press conference announcing 2 or 3 more matches. They're trying to get Yuji Nagata against Mark Coleman as the main event. Fujita is not going to be doing the show because he is going to be fighting in the Pride show on May the 27th instead. So now it's like, which of course asks the question, why do you put the world title on a guy when you got a Dome show in 4 weeks and he's not going to be on it? So
plus he's doing a shoot match that he could lose. What happens then?
It depends on who they put him against and if he's being protected or not. But that would just be, you know, for New Japan, that would be the worst, wouldn't it?
I mean, that's the whole problem with Inoki's whole deal of trying to, you know, I don't know if merge these two is the right idea, but have them work together and have a Pride guy with a New Japan World title. What happens if, you know, they unify all the belts or whatever, Mark Coleman gets them, and then has a bad day in Pride and gets beaten by some goof? Here's that word.
Yeah. Yeah, well, then they got to get that goof to come to New Japan and lose to Fujita.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, you can get your way out of it. It is embarrassing. I mean, hey, you know, I mean, it's on a 100 times more bigger level, but that did happen. You remember that did happen to WWF when they tried to do it with Butterbean and Bart Gunn.
Yeah, but he wasn't like the world champion.
Oh, I know. No. As I said, that's why.
Look what happened to Kashin, and he was just a junior guy.
Yeah. No, you know, you gotta, you shouldn't be putting your world, you shouldn't, you know, Pancras, and Pancras was legit, for the most part. You know, not 100% legit, but, you know, they did mostly real matches. When Ken Shamrock was the king of Pancras, and he was gonna fight in Ultimate against Dan Severn, the Pancras people made him drop his title in the ring I don't want to say a worked match, but they made he had to lose this match to Minoru Suzuki because they were afraid of their world champion going into another combat venue and losing, you know, to a rival, you know, Dan Severn, to another professional wrestler. And that's, you know, that was the mentality of protecting your world championship. And obviously, that's why I think that, you know, where you talked about that, I think that Fujita may be just plain protected in this next fight. And well, I mean, we'll have to see either with although the thing is, unless you work it, there's no such thing as protected because, you know, you go in there, you know, you just get unlucky and get kicked in the head, especially Fujita with no defense, standing. Yeah. You know, I mean, yeah, he can take a punch, but, you know, what if the guy just gets the punch in the right spot and you know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, I know guys here, you know, Fujita trained in San Jose, and I mean, there were little guys that pounded him around, you know, because he's not a stand-up fighter. I mean, now, granted, you know, he could take him down and everything. But, you know, you get some guy who, you know, who gets the punch in before he takes him down, stuns him. Anything can happen in a real fight.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's see. Let me just go through this stuff. This was actually an interview somebody sent me this morning, and it was actually before the Vanderlei Silva fight, so this was done a couple of weeks ago by Sakuraba. But Sakuraba is just really funny. It goes, what do you feel is the biggest danger in your fight with Vanderlei? And he goes, headbutting, which is actually probably true. Let's see. What do you think is Vanderlei's weakness? He goes, he doesn't have one. I hope I find one. Let's see. Did you see Vanderlei's eye after his fight with Dan Henderson at Pride 12? Do you think that it's still vulnerable? He goes, I saw it, but I doubt I'll be able to do the same thing because I'm not very good with my strikes. Who have you been training with the most for this fight? He goes, Matsui, Satake, Uno, TK, and Buddha. I think I'm going to need Buddha a lot this time. Let's see. Vanderlei does... By the way, Brian, have you watched that Vanderlei fight with Sakuraba yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, you know Vanderlei does that funny thing at the beginning where he does the wrist twirling thing? Have you ever seen him do that? The wrist twirling and the stare? Okay. He goes, Vanderlei does this wrist twirling thing and stares at his opponent intensely. This can be very intimidating to some people. You've been known to wear pro wrestling masks, a Santa outfit, and your own world championship belt. What will you do this time? He goes, I may wear something as a surprise. He goes, but I think Vanderlei looks like he's begging for money when he does that wrist thing. He goes, people have said that Vanderlei comes out all covered in grease for his fights. Do you think this may happen in your fight? He goes, with Vanderlei, anything's possible. If I feel he has grease on his skin, I will tell the referee to spin him on the floor and to pour oil on it so it catches on fire. Before, have you done any off-the-wall techniques like the Mongolian chop and the cartwheel guard pass? Do you have anything new for Vanderlei? Yes, it's called the Mokuguyu. It's a wooden musical instrument that Buddhist monks use. It's a little round coconut-looking thing that makes a hollow sound, and it imitates like hitting someone over the head with it. Let's see. Let me just see if there's anything else in here. He goes, will you play pachinko, which is a Japanese gambling game, for this fight, like you did before your previous fights? He goes, I have not had time to play pachinko before this fight. Do you think this will hurt your luck? He goes, I sure hope not. Let's see. Are you healthy for this fight and injury-free? And if you have an injury, will you use blue tape? And he goes, yes, because blue tape is magic tape. I think that tape was used before by my opponent, but he was too small and it didn't work for him. He needed more blue tape. So anyway, that's Sakuraba. Let's get to emails. Who is a better worker, Ric Flair or Triple H? Well, today Triple H. Yeah, today Triple H in their prime, Ric Flair. Would you agree? In their prime, Ric Flair?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is there a videotape available on When Worlds Collide or Collision in Korea? They were both on pay-per-view. I don't think there's commercial tapes of either of them. Yeah, I mean, in fact, I know there's no commercial tape of When Worlds Collide. And is there one of Collision in Korea? I don't think there is.
I don't know.
And then you got, okay. I just read on the Pro Wrestling Daily website that Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart have signed a new deal with Universal Studios to start a new promotion which would include Sting and Goldberg. Is there any truth to this? Well, the Sting and the Goldberg, clearly there is no truth. As far as if they've signed a deal with Universal, I don't want to, okay. I mean, I know that they've been negotiating it for a long, long time. I was told that they had a meeting on May the 1st where Universal would either decide one way or the other. If they'd signed something today, I mean, it's possible. But as far as like Sting and Goldberg being involved in it, and I haven't been able to confirm it, but I will try to get that confirmed by by tomorrow's show. But as far as Sting and Goldberg's involvement in it, I mean, Sting is most likely not going to be involved in anything. I mean, and Goldberg, if he's going to be involved in something, why wouldn't it be with WWF? He's going to sit, basically Goldberg's going to, unless someone offers him $3 million a year, he's going to sit at home.
Well, that'd be the whole thing. I mean, if they offer him $3 million, but even then, if word gets to Vince that they're going to offer Goldberg $3 million if he gets bought out, Vince may change his mind about that salary structure deal.
Yeah. What do you think of the idea of WWF eventually running house shows that feature wrestlers from the WCW and WWF, like mixed shows similar to Pro Wrestling USA with AWA and NWA? Well, I mean, at some point it's going to end up happening, but probably later than earlier. I wouldn't want to do it like this year. The other day Bruno was on. He made a comparison between himself drawing 45,000 at Shea. By the way, that number was actually 36,200.
I don't think he said 45,000, did he?
He said 46.
Okay.
It's 36. And Hogan drawing 78,000 at the Silverdome. He failed to bring up that Hogan-Andre was part of the Shea Stadium card that night in 1980. Yes, it was. Andre beat Hogan on the undercard. Of course, he goes, it was a triple main event. Yeah, but Bruno and Zbyszko was totally the draw. I mean, just Andre and Hogan alone at that point in time, I don't even think it would have sold out the Garden without Bruno or Backlund on it. I mean, clearly Bruno and Zbyszko was the draw on that. Just like on the Pontiac Silverdome card, you could say, well, they had, Roddy Piper and Adrian Adonis, and they had Steamboat and Savage. But clearly Hogan and Andre was the draw on that one as well. So he goes, so therefore maybe Hogan and Andre drew the crowd that night. Well, Hogan and Andre was a big angle, but Bruno and Zbyszko was much hotter than Hogan and Andre in that era. Let's see. Do you know
guys?
Goldberg? Yes.
Yeah.
One of the emailer that just emailed in about the When Worlds Collide tapes.
Yes.
One of our listeners just called in and said you can get them from Triple Crown Tapes. He didn't give me a website, but I guess if you do a search for Triple Crown Tapes, you'll probably find them.
Okay. That is. Let's see. It took second in our balloting for greatest pay-per-view ever, and if you watch it, it's a hell of a show. So that's a tape worth getting. Do you know if Bill Goldberg, Big Papa Pump, Kevin Nash, and the guy from Harlem Heat, great, will be on the WCW
Stevie
roster?
Ray?
I think. It's all up in the air. No one knows.
Yes, they signed in the last 10 minutes since we last discussed it.
Yes. Do you think that Vince McMahon will continue with the XFL after the season? I'm only saying this because he was quoted in the LA Times as saying it would continue without NBC. I think if he was
well,
a
Mike
prudent
Keller said on the heads of his children that it would continue.
Yeah, I know. I think if he was a prudent businessman, he would not do it, and we will see. I do not rule out that he will do it, but I have no earthly idea why, other than, just, stubbornness, really.
Yeah. He has set up both NBC and the media as a scapegoat, though, if something falls through.
You mean just to
stop? Which is smart on his part.
Yeah. Have you been told of any potential venues to hold the big OVW shows after The Last Dance? Yeah, The Last Dance, which is June 27th, is the last... I should write this down. It's the last show at the Louisville Gardens, which is being torn down on July the 1st. Yeah, Jim Cornette has got, I think, a 7,000-seat building in Louisville that they're going to start running their big shows out. So I don't know the name of it, but yeah, there's one.
Are they going to build a new building where the gardens were, like a new arena?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay.
Are you aware Chauncey Hayden had WF Ring announcer Lillian Garcia on today? Yeah, I only got like 500 emails.
They listened to the whole show.
You listened to it?
No. I thought you did.
No, I did not. No. Is it true the great Sasuke invented the senton bomb? I don't know. Who were your favorite guys from ECW? Jerry Lynn was my favorite guy to watch. Yoshihiro Tajiri. That would be those would be the two. Super Crazy.
What's he talking about? In history or just at the end?
At the end, I guess. No, if you're talking about in history, I guess Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit.
Yeah, Ray and Eddie and
Guerrero. Yeah. But, all those guys. And then, to a lesser extent, Van Damme. Just a lot of them. Triple H's match with Jeff Hardy just told Jeff Hardy the years he spent taking those big bumps and smashing through tables meant nothing. Let's see. In your opinion, who is the best all-around mic skill in the ring?
One thing about that Jeff Hardy Triple H thing, I got mad reading an email yesterday, and it was basically someone that was complaining about all the people that were complaining about the match, basically saying, Vince McMahon is making more money than any of you, so who are you to judge his booking? And I just thought to myself, in 1998 there was a company that was making more money than anyone, including Vince McMahon, and that company is dead today. And it was attitudes like that from the people that were there in 1998. Why listen to these fans? Look at what we're making. What do they know about wrestling? We're booking, or whatever. It's dead.
Yeah. Let's see. Why can't Fujita work a wrestling match and do the Pride show? Otsuka works a match and a Pride show on the same day and does a Pride fight on the same day and builds the ring.
He is not Fujita.
Yeah. Also, what do you think of the two Pride matches that look to be happening? Let's see. The two matches are Vitor Belfort against Guy Metzger. You just don't know what you're going to get with Vitor Belfort. I mean, he may kill Guy Metzger or he may get... I don't know. I think it's an interesting match, though. I'm intrigued by it. And the other one, Dan Henderson and Alon Goes, I have no idea why they're booking that match at all. I mean, it'll probably be a pretty competitive match. They fought once in UFC, and it was a very even and very exciting match. So in that sense, that's good. But, I don't... Dan Henderson just beat Renzo Gracie, so he's kind of got a little bit of momentum. And plus he fought Silva Tough. And Goes just got killed by Mark Coleman. I mean, it's just like two guys they're putting together that will probably have a good fight, but I would just think that I would want to put Dan Henderson against someone who, if he beats him, it would mean more, and if he loses, at least he would lose to a better opponent. Not that Goes isn't good, but he just got, I would rather have him establish himself before doing that. Let's see, does Super Crazy have a good shot at getting into WCW? I would say he has a shot. I don't know how good the shot is, but he has a shot. Is there any danger of delaying the WCW startup? Doesn't the WF risk the chance of losing WCW viewers by delaying the startup? I don't think delaying it from June to, say, the middle of July will make any difference, do you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't mean a year.
Yeah, I'm
just means there's no set date yet.
It goes, what does a WWF developmental deal entail? Depending on the guy. I mean, I'm sure like Brock Lesnar got, a lot better of a deal, or Kurt Angle got a lot better of a deal when they were in developmental than, say, God, I don't know, and everyone else.
Yeah.
Some guys,
most of the
ones
like
that
$800 a week. You sent to a territory, probably wrestle 4 nights a week as part of your deal, so you're not getting anything extra on top of that. And that's about it.
You can get as low as some of the guys have gotten as low as 500. for developmental, because I know the lowest contracts were 25. I know, like when Vic Rimes and Crash Holly went, they got 25,000 a year, so it's like basically 500 a week, and they would be sent to Memphis, or in this case, Crash Holly was sent Mexico. He was sent everywhere in the world, and you're basically paid that, and then the promoter, what's good for the promoters, for like Ohio Valley and Memphis Championship, is basically they don't have to pay their talent.
Yeah,
because the WWF
and I think they can
pays
just book shows whenever, wherever they want.
Yeah. Let's see. How tall are? Let's go. Helmsley. We say 6, maybe 6'4", 6'3.5".
6'3", 6'4", yeah.
Yeah. Rock is 6'4", legit. They say 6'5". Austin, I'm guessing at 6'2". Yeah, 6'2".
Say around there, yeah.
Kurt Angle, 5'10", maybe. 5'9", 5'10".
So that whole thing with Benoit, remember we were talking about you standing next to Benoit, he looked like he was the same height? Probably about 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah.
No taller than that for sure.
Benoit's probably legitimately about 5'8" to 5'8.5". Let's see. I would like to know if you think having an Extreme Baseball League is a good idea for Vince for next season. He can use people like the Big Show, Billy Gunn, and China to showcase their great skills. Is it possible that everyone that Shane McMahon was seen talking to will be in the new WCW? Anything is possible, but those decisions have not been made. Let's see. Let's see. Which of these events do you think made Steve Austin? All of the above. Winning the King of the Ring, a little. The first match with Madison Square Garden with Brett, the one that Brett won? Yeah. Winning the Rumble, no. I think the one that made him, if I had to pick one, he was on the road, but the one that really put him over would be the Brett match at WrestleMania. And then I think, if I was going to pick one. If Bischoff can get TV and Vince's WCW fails, do you think that Vince would sell to Bischoff?
No.
No. Who do you think?
Sell what? The name?
Yeah.
The talent?
Yeah.
Hey, here's some guys.
Yeah. What was The Rock's best match? Rock's best match? One of the Angle matches, I think.
Yeah, he had a real good, does that count
Angle
like tag team, or?
I think he's meaning singles. I think some of the Angle matches on TV were phenomenal. The Benoit match, if they had a better finish, when he worked with Benoit at Fully Loaded, was really, really good.
How about his match with Benoit on TV where Rikishi came in? That match was awesome.
Yeah. I said some awesome ones. All the Helmsley matches were very good, but to me, Rock's best matches consistently are with Angle. Let's see. What's happening to Jerry Lawler? I don't know. That's a good question. I guess he must have given up going back to the WWF, which may not have happened anyway, but still going on Mancow and inferring that Bruce Pritchard and Stephanie McMahon are sleeping together is just stupid, even if they are or they're not, and God, I hope they're not. Yeah. The Roller Jam team was called the California Quakes. That's right, they were. That's not... Anyway, let's see. If Triple H or Austin were suddenly out of the WWF, who could step up to the plate and take their place? It'd be difficult to fill those two voids, but that's why you gotta make guys now, because what if they both get hurt?
Yeah, what happens?
Yeah. Okay. Why does everyone think every new football league will suddenly equal the success of the NFL? I don't think anyone has thought that at all.
Who thinks that? Except Vince.
Yeah. Name one. Even Vince didn't think that. Vince didn't even come in and think that they were going to come anywhere near the NFL's level of success. I think that he was just thinking that they would be, that they would be a viable entity.
Yeah.
I don't think, but anyway, professional football didn't really become big until the late 60s. It was pretty big in the late 50s. But it really got, 58 is usually where it really picked up. Before that, there had been pro football for over 60 years, though not the NFL. The XFL does better ratings numbers than the NHL. Yet they still have companies. By the way, that's sort of a fraud too. The primetime NBC numbers for the XFL, the NBC numbers are bigger than the afternoon XFL ratings. Okay, but the XFL afternoon ratings are triple the afternoon. The NHL afternoon ratings are triple the afternoon XFL ratings. Let me get that straight. So, because that's like the new big argument. And even so, what does it matter? The fact that hockey does terrible ratings.
The NHL lose $76 million in 3 months.
did the NHL lose $76 million? And they may very well have. But what does that? How does that impact WWF? I mean, I don't know what the NHL is paying players millions and millions of dollars, and there are some teams that are losing a lot of money in the NHL. But what does that have to do with XFL? You know what I mean? I mean, there's plenty of businesses that are losing more money than the XFL. Does that make the XFL a successful business?
Yeah.
Okay. Is Shawn Michaels still under the new contract he signed? As best to my knowledge, he is, but I don't know. I should ask that. Let's see. I'm a huge fan of pro wrestling, but I'm in my early 20s, so I haven't been exposed to all of the classic matches. Nobody has. Who are the top 10 or 20 workers? Oh, I can't ever in the business. I don't know if I could do 10 or 20 right off the top of my head. But anyway, actually, he's actually going to, he goes, where would these guys stand? They should all be looked at in their prime. Ray Jr. Ray Jr. at his prime was a phenomenal flyer. I don't know, his prime wasn't long enough, but then again, he's still a great worker today, and he's 26 years old, and he may, if he stays as good as he is now, the problem is that the market's not going to let Ray do what he could have done, just because, he's in a, it's just not going to happen now, it's just not going to happen. Bret Hart was one of the best workers I think there ever was. Shawn Michaels, without a question. Ric Flair, maybe the best. Liger, in his prime, was awesome. Benoit, awesome. Dynamite Kid. Dynamite Kid stuff wouldn't be as great today as it was then, but you got to judge it by your time frame. And Dynamite Kid was years ahead of his time, like Satoru Sayama, Misawa, Kenta Kobashi. All these guys are great. Juventud, I hate to put Juventud that high on the list, although he's got the talent. I just, you know what I mean? There's something about, like, the other guys, like, just did more, you know what I mean? They had more great matches. Keiji Muto, yes. Inoki, no. Inoki is the greatest legend of this industry because he's the greatest shooter and the greatest worker, and he was nowhere close to either. I mean, he's the greatest manipulator. I mean, blows Hogan away. Let's see. Will the WWF keep any of the old WCW wrestlers who will not be with the WCW for themselves? If they want to, they can. I haven't heard anything in that direction being talked about, but, obviously it could happen. Did Harley Race ever body slam Andre the Giant? Yes. Did Andre the Giant ever job before WrestleMania 3? Yes, many times. Although they claim he never did. Was there an angle that took place in WCW where Harlem Heat came down to the ring in chains and dragged to the ring by Colonel Rob Parker? I don't believe that ever happened. No, I don't think it ever happened. It was a proposed idea by Sid Udy, the great booking mind that he is, to bring those guys in, and obviously Standards and Practices nixed it, and that's the reason, by the way, that whoever was booking then, Ole Anderson or whatever, that's the reason his ratings were so bad, because the damn Standards and Practices.
Hey, that's a great idea, by the way. The whole, Vince Russo went to WCW and did all those ideas, and he never got a chance to do in the WWF. Sid could now start his promotion and do all his ideas he never had a chance to do. Stevie Ray's going to be available.
Let's go. My three favorite things in wrestling are Kurt Angle's promos, Steve Regal's acting ability, and Vince's evil voice. They're all good. They're all good. It goes, what is your journalism background? I wrote for a bunch of newspapers, and then how long have you done wrestling exclusively? Since, I guess pretty much exclusively since 1987. If you were going to open up a new promotion other than doing mixed martial arts or work shoot, what would you do to differentiate your promotion from the WWF? I would say the only one that I could think of that I think is viable right now, but it's not viable to a big-time level. But as far as a small company that could be profitable, I think is Selected Markets doing lucha with the top lucha guys. I think that you could make money with that if you hit the markets 2 or 3 times a year and didn't overdo yourself. Because lucha, as far as on the independent level, the lucha stuff is drawing better than anything else except for the shoot fighting stuff. And the traditional pro wrestling on the independent level, it's a very tough draw right now. Let's see what else we got here. Judging by the way Shinjiro Otani is being buried, I can only wonder why Triple H feels so threatened by him. That's a pretty good one. Let's see. Did anyone see the thing on the CBS Evening News last night about backyard wrestling? It wasn't anything special, mostly a rehash of every other story we've just seen on TV. I did not see it. Brian, did you see it? I didn't know they had it. Okay. Why at SmackDown tapings do they have to take commercial breaks? It doesn't make sense to me. Because they go live to... they go live to tape, and they're doing stuff, and they have to set stuff up, and there's long breaks at SmackDown, which a lot of people have addressed in that company. Let's see. What's the news on Grand Naniwa? He wrestles for All Japan. Let's see. I know that both of you are sick of XFL emails that come in defending the league. So here's another one. Okay, let's go through this one real quick. Okay. I do not doubt the XFL has lost a lot of money and their ratings have been weak. The numbers compare favorably with other sports shows. Yeah, but they were presented as primetime television. The NBC and UPN telecasts both finished in the top 15 sports-rated programs. Not to make an excuse, but the UPN playoff game on Easter was on Easter, and it did barely go up from the week before. Yeah, it went up from an 06 to an 07. It's not anything to brag about. Sunday afternoons are better for football. Okay, then tell me, let's get to the expectation level for ratings in the afternoons are lower, and there is no doubt the league hasn't drawn in primetime. The TNN number is right around what they do or higher for XFL broadcasts, and the UPN game drew a 3.0 in the afternoon. That was the debut game. Everyone did good the first week. After that, UPN opened at a 3.0, and I think they were down to a 1.9 the second week and ended up the season at an 0.6, and then they did 0.7 for the playoffs. I think both UPN and TNN would be more satisfied with the figures in the afternoon because they compare favorably to what they had in those previous time slots. Well, UPN has nothing in those time slots, but it would not compare. An 0.6 would not be a good number on most, not all, but most UPN stations for a Sunday 4 to 7 time slot in most markets. That would be considered. Most of the affiliates would consider it a very bad number. Some of the affiliates on the weaker UPN stations would probably figure it's okay, but I know that by the third week of the season, the UPN affiliates were already up in arms, and that's when the numbers were like at 1.6 level-ish. And now when they're less than half of that, I think that they're not happier. TNN is going to do whatever. As far as like TNN, they're going to do whatever because they'll if they do a 0.0 rating on TNN, TNN's happy because they got a lifetime contract with the league. They don't want to break it because their bread and butter is that Raw. So TNN will always be with them. As an XFL fan, I know that I'm trying to look
gotten a 0.0?
Some of the paid programming stuff, there's stuff that gets like below a 0.1. There were demographic groups, like women, teenagers and stuff, that on some of those XFL games, like the UPN game and the TNN games, that actually get it's like this scribble, which means under a 0.1. Because when I get the demographic breakdowns before the ratings got so low that they burned all the demographic breakdowns. You know what I mean?
You don't get them anymore.
I got them for about 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden they no longer existed because the ratings dropped so much. As an XFL fan, I'm trying to look on the bright side, and this year there hasn't been much to be happy with. As a hardcore football fan, the XFL is awesome. It's head and shoulders above NFL, Europe, and the Arena League. Both of those leagues average an 0.2. Okay, that's right. They do. That's why both of those leagues are in trouble as TV properties. I think the XFL's production costs are through the roof. Probably true. And that's one of the reasons they've lost so much money. The player salaries are not really a lot. It's true, the salaries are pretty low, although they're higher than NFL Europe and way higher than the Arena League. True. The XFL has done a decent figure with live gates, since the games average 15,000. But they budgeted at 20. No, San Francisco did very, very well. Some of the teams, the other teams, by the end of the season were not drawing well at all. Chicago and LA did hideous. Vegas ended up bad, although they started off really good. But San Francisco did very well. They've definitely lost money with sponsors. They didn't get the money they expected from them because ad rates were slashed because of the poor ratings. But the fact that this league is being paid by sponsors for any time is a good thing. Having Burger King, Bud Light, and Busch as sponsors is not bad for a brand new sports league. As far as the NFL signing XFL players, which today the Saints signed Jeff Hall, I see that as a good thing. The XFL has a credibility issue with the sports world. If the NFL signs their players, it shows they're a legitimate sports league with legitimate football talent. The problem with that is that how come that didn't work for ECW? When WWF kept signing ECW talent and WCW kept signing ECW talent, did that help ECW? No,
I mean, it may have given ECW credibility as a promotion that had guys that could go farther, but it also ended up with a promotion that didn't have those guys anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's start with the phone calls. We'll start with Ed in Arkansas. Ed, what's going on?
I have two questions. One, do you think that maybe Big Show is going to get punished by having to job to Shane, after his little mistake on Raw?
If he really said that, and they think he did, there's probably a pretty decent shot that that'll happen. But I don't know.
Plus, he's been buried for about 3 weeks now.
Yeah, I mean, he was being buried before that.
He must have done something before that too.
Well, he didn't get in shape, and they were just tired of it. I know, and that's the deal.
And my other question is, I was listening to an archive of the Jim Cornette interview, and why does he hate everybody? I mean,
he doesn't hate everybody. He only hates the people he hates.
Heyman, why does he hate Heyman and Madden and Jim Herd? And I understand why he hates Russo, because everybody hates him. But
I think that when he was on, I think he pretty much explained why. Why he hated. Everyone whose questions have been asked, and he has pretty detailed explanations for every one of them.
Okay. And I guess that's it. Thanks.
Okay, let's go to Wes. Wes, what's going on?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing pretty good.
In regards to, you haven't heard a whole lot about Jason Broyles. Was he one of those guys? I think he didn't have an actual deal, so I guess he didn't get transferred over. So have you heard anything where he may be headed?
I expect that they will bring him in because he'll come in. If they didn't buy his contract, and I don't know that they didn't, I know a lot of people are real high on him, so I expect he'll be in. I haven't been told specifically, and he doesn't have the look that they like that may be held against him.
And what about the fight?
Well, I don't know.
I pretty much heard that he instigated it, so.
Well, that's not
a locker room leader.
That's not good. And they don't want that stuff. And they shouldn't.
That's the only thing that I would worry about. I mean, as far as everything else, I think it would be, a no-brainer to bring him in, but just that in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not bringing Scott Steiner because he threatened to beat up Terry Taylor. Why bring in somebody that got in that? And plus, Scott Steiner got in a fight.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Also, in terms of Sid mentioned about Randy Savage maybe getting involved with the Memphis and Jeff Jarrett. Have you heard anything on that?
Sid mentioned it?
Yeah, on that interview that he gave a couple weeks ago on one of the radio shows he was on.
Well, I'm sure.
I know his word isn't much.
I mean, it's like I've heard Jeff Jarrett's name bandied about by every different major player in Memphis because of the idea that Jeff Jarrett wrestled in Memphis for a long time. It appears, although we don't know for sure, that WWF will not bring him in. I mean, most likely they won't. So it would make it natural that he would run in Memphis. So yeah, he might. I mean, if Sid got that time slot, I put it this way: I don't see Randy Savage. I mean, he may go for one show, but I don't see Randy Savage wrestling as a regular in a Memphis promotion at this stage of his life. And I don't see Jarrett doing it either, although I could see Jarrett, just going in on a Saturday afternoon and driving in just to stay in wrestling for a while he does something else, more likely than Savage,
And I heard Savage's asking price is something like $10,000 for an appearance or something completely ridiculous.
Well, that's why he's not getting any.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, in terms of earlier this week, Dave, you're talking about those three-way matches. Well, it's been several years since I've seen it, but what do you think of that? The one, I guess, that started everything with Sabu, Shane Douglas, and Terry Funk. The one in ECW, I guess it was 94.
It got over like crazy. It put the promotion on the map, so therefore it was a very successful match. Now, when watching the 60-minute match on television, if you watch it now, you would think it was a terribly overrated match. But at the time it was great, and all that matters is at the time.
Yeah. All right, guys, appreciate the comments.
Charles, you're up next from Connecticut. What's going on? Charles. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. I have two questions. If Vince didn't have Hulk Hogan, who do you think that the WWF would have been as big as it was, and who would have been his top guy?
Didn't have in the 80s. I don't know who would have been his top guy. It would not have been as big, no. Hogan really had a lot of charisma. Snuka would have self-destructed. Piper would have only gotten over at the beginning as a heel. I think he would have spent a ton of money to get Kerry Von Erich, who would have self-destructed also, but that would have been the other guy, because if you look at that 1984 period, if you're looking at the baby faces that people thought you could run a company with, Luger hadn't come in, and Luger would have flopped too, but, nobody knew that at the time. Or he would have gone and spent a ton of money to get Flair, because those were the marquee guys in that time period. And Flair would not have self-destructed, obviously, but I don't think that Flair would have taken in a different wrestling product. I don't think it would have been as big, but it may have been a better product in the long run, because, Flair would have educated people to a different style of match, and he would have had Vince McMahon's marketing behind it. It would have been a totally different wrestling world. It's hard to say, but I would say, yeah, Kerry Von Erich or Ric Flair would have probably been the guys put in that spot.
I know Vince owns a WCW library. To what year does it go up to? Do you know?
What do you mean? You mean as far back?
Years to go up to?
Yeah, like is it like
It goes up to 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was. Whatever the last show was, the week before Mania.
Oh, I thought he owned like all the shows up to the 80s, right?
No, he owns everything.
He owns everything, yeah. Yeah, he would own the whatever's left, whatever TBS kept, which would be certainly everything I would think from 88 on is kept, and I think a lot of the stuff from the 80s is kept too.
Okay. I heard WWF is interested in Dave Flair. Do you know why? I mean, other than
I think just to be nice to Rick.
Flair's kid.
Yeah, just to be nice to Rick and just to give him a chance.
Does that mean that they're going to give Ric Flair a shot, or
they'd love to have Ric Flair. It's just a question of the financial details being worked out. But of course they'd love to have him. He's a great talker, and he's a legend in the business, and it's good to have on that TV show because he gives a show, I don't know, some credibility, if that's the right word. Just something. Him being there is, I think, pretty important if they can get him.
One thing about Flair, I almost think that he should go to the WWF because he's one of those guys that, in 2 years, his WCW deal's going to be up, the money's going to stop coming in, and I guess he could probably go to the WWF then and do something, but he's one of those guys that could really be around forever in some capacity and get paid for it.
Well, he will be around forever.
That's true.
But if you're talking about the next 2 years, if he's got $800 on the table and he can spend 2 years with his kids growing up and things like that, or make a whole lot less and then go on the road for 2 years, I think that this decision might be an easy one. Unless they really make it economically worth his while.
Plus, in 2 years, just bring him in then.
Have you ever tried to get Vince on the show?
Vince McMahon on this show?
Yeah.
I don't expect it. If he wants to do it, we certainly wouldn't turn it down, that's for sure.
Why wouldn't he do it?
You gotta ask him, I don't know.
He does like all these stupid shows. He does like Howard Stern and all these shows where like people...
They got a lot more visibility. That's the deal.
Yeah.
If I had the audience Howard Stern did, Vince would probably be on every week. That he could.
You think so? I don't think so.
No, I don't either. You're right.
When you look back at Bob Costas, some of the questions that Bob Costas could have asked, which you would have asked, Vince would have been screwed.
One more thing.
He does Landsberg, once every year or so, and Landsberg's the best when it comes to interviewing Vince. Nobody's come close, and he keeps going back. I think that like with Landsberg, I think Vince likes that challenge because he knows Landsberg is good, but I don't think he would want to do it every week either.
Yeah.
You said that you saw no point in having Kevin Von Erich on the show. Why is that?
So I don't see any point. Why?
Well, he's got, all the interesting stories, all the
But they're all going to be made up. It's like, when someone's got, we've had guys on the show at times whose credibility is somewhat questionable, but
in question.
When you got guys in question. But when someone's credibility is going to be 100% in a fantasy world, why bother? It's like if I was doing a fantasy wrestling show, I'd love to have them on, but we try to be as real as we can, and with a guest like that.
So you're going to give a glorified version of the Von Erich
it's just
saga?
They never lived in reality, and based on interviews I've seen with him since, he still doesn't. If he was ever in reality, why not? I'm not going to have Sin on from OVW again either. You know what I mean? It's just, just no point.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to Robert. Robert, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing? I'm
good.
a manager for NWA New England, known as Damien Darkside. I also came back from WWF Tough Enough last month, but doesn't do my question.
McCarthy?
Hey, how'd that go?
Huh?
How'd that go?
McCarthy?
Yeah, Bob McCarthy.
Okay, hey, so how'd the Tough Enough go?
It's not that bad. There was 400 people. I got there on the first day. I was number 15. We all piled in a room. Al Snow and Taz and a couple of them were the panel guests. It was held in WWF New York. They were kind of hard on people, making people nervous because I would watch the other auditions when the restaurant would open. I went in there. Basically, you have 3 tests. A rope test, which was mine. You hit the bottom rope. You go across, hit the other one for 30 seconds side to side. And then after
you hit the bottom rope?
Yeah, the bottom rope. And then after you're all out of breath,
how the hell do you hit the bottom rope?
Well, you know what I mean? Okay, you stand in the middle, you touch the bottom rope, and then you shuffle side to side.
Like doing lines in tennis.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that cramps your thighs real quick. Yeah, I've done that.
And then I cut a promo after, which I do really good because I'm a manager. And, you know, but as I was leaving the ring, I can see Taz shaking his head, so I knew that I kind of probably blew it. But, you know.
Yeah, he's going like, this guy's cutting a promo. We don't want anyone cutting promos.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've seen him real rough. He's cut people off on their promos. He was, like, being hard on girls. A lot of people were nervous, and I just don't think they took that into consideration that, you know, these people, some of them probably never been in the business or had an opportunity to do anything. But, you know, it wasn't that bad.
Well, when you have that many people trying out and you know there's only going to be 12 slots, you know.
Oh, yeah. They were there, like, for 12 hours a day, just sitting there all day. They had to go through 400 people within 2 days, so you can see them probably getting tired. I mean, they were doing it from, like, 7 in the morning to 9 at night.
Can you imagine that after 12 hours?
Oh, yeah, I know. That's probably where Taz's attitude
12 hours
comes in.
of watching all these promos and everything.
Oh, you just go. I never want to. It's like I want to kill every person that walks in the ring. But yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure they probably look at it, and you know, I don't know if they're looking at his bias or somebody might take their spot that's good or something. But you know, I mean, you know, both these guys have been in the business for 15 years, so they might have a little bit of anger on them. But you know, I'll have to see the TV show to see how it turns out. I didn't make it to the 25, but it was a good trip, a good experience. I'll get to my questions. Another thing, on the way home, I stopped at Titan Towers, and something I always wanted to do was, like, on a Saturday, no one was there, so I had my camera and stuff. I had my friend take me cut a promo outside Titan Towers, and in character, and I said, hey, Vince, let me in. And I've made demo tapes before, and my first one I ever made, Bruce Pritchard called me, and then Kevin Kelly called me in 2000, and I was wondering if it's something I should send in, and, you know, I was asking a lot of people in the business that I work with. Some people say it's good, you know, and it's funny, and I just don't want to shake the wrong ground, you know what I mean? There was nothing bad.
I don't see any, you know, the fact that they called you back puts you ahead of like 99.9% of the people who send that stuff in.
Yeah.
Because most people don't get called back, so that, you know, you should take that as a compliment even if you never get in. And so you obviously had something that at least intrigued them to a
Oh yeah, it was my first ever demo tape. I wasn't even managing yet. I do a public access show, and Bruce Pritchard called me up and said, you know, we have nothing for you right now. We just want to know you've seen your tape. I called him up. He only had me on the phone for a couple minutes. I said, do you think I have what it takes? He goes, it's about timing and experience. And I said, thank you. He kind of rushed me off the phone. So I kind of felt bad after that. But a month later, on February 3rd, 2000, Kevin Kelly called me up and said, I'm returning your phone call you made to Bruce Pritchard. He's returning a phone call I made a month ago. So I was like, wow, so they must have been talking about me. And I sent them probably about 8 demo tapes after that, and I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, well, you know what it is. You know, when you talk about time and experience, that is what wrestling is, and what you got to do is, you got to just practice doing the interviews and everything like that, and get yourself into a promotion that they notice.
Right.
And if you do that and you're really good, you know, it's the one thing about the internet now is just that if you're really good, the word kind of gets around because, you know, look at like Chris Daniels or someone like that. You know, years ago, working those cities that he works, nobody would know about it. But now pretty much everyone knows about it. But he still didn't get a job out of it from WWF. But the fact is that like, they know who everyone's aware. Everyone's aware of people who are good, you know. So it's just a question to kind of get in everyone's radar, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, definitely something. I mean, I was just a manager. And I worked for NWA New England, the National Wrestling Alliance of New England. And so, like, it's probably one of the major companies around here in Boston. And, you know, with the NWA name, I hope that will get me out there. And I had my first match on April 1st, which was pretty good. But, you know, I haven't had no training, so it's basically a manager getting in, doing some cheap shots and stuff. But, yeah, I mean, I thought, you know, that's why I wanted to get your opinion on, you know, them calling me because that was definitely a big thing. And a lot of independent guys probably don't get a phone call or something.
Most aren't going to get a phone call, I would think.
Right. Let me ask you a question. I just saw the Max Payne home video on his website, his movie. You probably commented on this before, right? I thought it was interesting. I couldn't believe it. And I was wondering if, you know, if that's going to sell or, you know.
I don't know what
will never see the light of day.
But it'll probably never see the light of day, right? That preview is probably the only thing. Louis Spagoli walking around in his underwear and Kevin Nash with bottles of prescription. It's probably the only thing we're going to see, right?
Maybe.
It's the kind of video you don't send to the WWF.
Yeah, well, tell you what, I'll send you guys a video of that promo and stuff like that, and I'll have you check it out and see what you think.
Okay, Robert, we got to get running too because we got Devin Storm on the line, Chris Ford, Crowbar. How you doing today?
How are you, Dave?
I'm doing really good. We got Brian
Devin
Alvarez
Storm,
here
Chris
as well.
Ford, Crowbar, whatever you prefer.
Okay. You know, this is, I guess, our first chance to talk to you at length on this show.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it.
What's your thoughts as far as, you know, your position in wrestling today? I mean, you had a WF tryout match, I guess it was just a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. It was last week.
How do you think that went? And, you know,
hello?
How do you think the tryout matches went?
Well, actually, that was my first match after about 6 weeks after being released, and by that time I was real antsy to get in the ring again. You know me, we've spoken about it in the past. I love to perform. I love getting out there. I'm a big fan of performing. You know, it's not just a business thing for me. So it felt great to finally get out there in front of the crowd, and I was very pleasantly surprised by the warm reception from the Philadelphia crowd there. You know, I was actually surprised with that they took so well, and I think the match went okay.
How did you like working with Prototype?
It was definitely the first time we worked together. He's more of a power guy, likes to keep it to the ground game. So I took the beginning of the match and some of my signature stuff. I let him cut me off and heel down on me, really get a good beat down going, and got to blow the comeback at the end there. Do a couple of high spots at the end, and at the end he hooked the tights or jeans for the win. He was great to work with, real nice guy, and if you just look at him, there's a ton of potential there with some time.
How was he as a worker? Because he was on the show a couple of months ago, and he basically said, I'm not very good. But then people who have seen him since then said that he's improved quite a bit.
Yeah, he's definitely you can tell he's new, but he's very eager to learn. He listened well, and he was real easy to work with. We got out there to talk out the match. Sometimes some of these new guys, they think they know it all, but he was very receptive. He was very open to what I had to say and ideas, and we actually bounced ideas back and forth off of each other, and he handled it like a real pro. And if you just look at the guy, as I said before, he has a great look to him. He has a lot of natural ability, and one day that guy's going to be a star, I think.
He's also, Brian, one thing I noticed, and in fact, when we're going to be in Santa Ana on this coming Wednesday, and we'll probably be talking to him, but I don't know if that was the match with Devin and some of the matches he's done, or the first heel matches he's done, because everything I'd ever seen of him was babyface up to that
that's
point.
what he had said, but
so was
I'm sorry.
So that was his first heel match, was the match with you, maybe?
I think so. They thought that since we were in Philadelphia and most of my time on the TV as of late, I'd been a babyface, they figured that the people wouldn't buy it if I was playing the quote-unquote heel role. So they thought it would be a good experience for him to try healing out on somebody, and I thought he did well with it.
I think he's better as a heel than as a babyface, because I saw him Saturday night wrestle, and he did certain things as a heel that I didn't think a guy who'd only done probably 2 or 3 heel matches in his life would be able to do.
Like what?
Like facials and mannerisms, and the begging off, and he was actually a total pro at that.
That's great. The facials are so big, and the facials have really just become a part of my character over the past year and a half, and I think that's one of the things that took me from being just a plain wrestler into actually having a character, and actually just got developed kind of by accident.
You were in WCW for a couple of years. For a while there, just working. You just kind of were there, working the Saturday nights. They kind of took a liking to you with Jimmy Hart and some of the people. Especially one of the matches you did with Chris Benoit was the one everyone raved about, and they pretty much right after that they gave you the crowbar gimmick. And with WCW, you kind of had this up and down run. You had some good TV time, then they kind of forgot about you. And it was it had to be a really trying period for everyone.
Sure, absolutely. At the times there were really some awesome, a lot of fun things going on. I was having a great time. The Benoit was definitely a highlight with the match with Benoit. Most guys, when they get into the business, they think themselves what it'd be like to be in a ring with Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair. For me, when I got into high school, I really started being a fan of the Japanese tapes and stuff like that. And me getting to work with him was like, somebody else getting to work with Hulk Hogan, like somebody else that they grew up watching. It was just an awesome experience. And throughout the years, there were definitely some up times and some down times. And even when the times were down, though, I really tried to focus on what the positive. Because if I really focused on all the negative things that happened in this business for the past 10 years, I would have quit a long time ago. Either when it was up and even when it was down, it was a lot better than being on the independent circuit. So, that's what I always tried to focus on, is even when things didn't really seem that good there, tried to focus on where I came from and how much better it was being there.
Were you frustrated when they did deals like they would start an angle with you, and then all of a sudden next week it would just have been dropped, and then maybe a few weeks later they would start it up again? Like they had the whole deal with Ozzy, and it was like they were going to do something there,
Just joke about Ozzy.
This fiance or whatever, and it's this guy that looks like you, and then they go to Australia and he never returns. And what was it like to have to start these things and then not have him in? And what was the angle there? And
well, sure, it's a little bit disheartening, like you wait the whole year, maybe a few months to get an angle, that's being featured on with the TV, and then when you finally get it, you think something's starting to look up, and then all of a sudden it's gone. It takes a lot out of you, and it was at those times where you really do got to focus on where you did come from, and try and focus on the fun part of the game. I love performing, and even if it wasn't a major angle, I really tried to enjoy the time I was in the ring. There was a period there where I was flown out to TVs a few weeks in a row, and I would get there and there would be nothing for me to do, and I would go up to Terry Taylor, and I'm like, Terry, you got to hook me up here. At least give me a worldwide match. I'm dying to get in there. I'm dying to perform. And for like maybe 4 or 5 weeks straight, I was the king of worldwide. That's all I did was worldwide matches. But it was like I was happy doing that. I was happy just being in there and being able to perform. Sure, you always hope for more to be involved in it, like an angle that means something on the mainstream TV. But at that point, in time the worldwides, and that was what kept me going. Also, towards the end of August and early fall, we were able to do a few independent shows, and I took a whole bunch of indies on, just for the sake of being able to go out there and stay sharp and really be involved in the match.
Now, when in WCW over the last year, I guess most of 2000. There was a period there where your role seemed to be WWF got on a couple pay-per-views. Some guys took some really outrageous bumps, and it sort of seemed like that was your role on TV. The one time, actually there were a couple of them where you took some incredible bumps. And the one thing that used to just bother me so much about it is that you would take these bumps, and then it would almost be like they were I don't want to say ignored, but they were underplayed.
Oh, sure.
It's like a balcony bump with Shane Douglas. I don't think they should have replay of it.
No. Sure, to a certain extent it bothered me, and especially the way the business is these days. It's real easy for a big bump to get over both the guy that throws the guy and also the guy that takes it. And sure, I think there were a few opportunities where they could have been capitalized better on, but like I said before, that made times a little bit hard, but I've also learned not to expect anything, from the wrestling business, and just go out there and try and have the best time I can. Do I think they could have been capitalized on? Sure. People seem to get into the big falls and stuff like that, but when they're not played up and they're not made a big deal of, they're not going to mean anything, no matter what you try and do.
At the end, in the last year or so, was there anyone, more than anyone else, that you enjoyed working with? And one name I want to throw in there, because, you did the promos, and I think one of the best promos you did was before one of your matches with Terry Funk. And was that a big deal to you, growing up watching Terry Funk on that match in Troy and things like that?
Sure. The past year, I would have to say Terry Funk was definitely a highlight. I was always a big fan of Terry Funk, and it was great to be out there to do that series of matches with him. And I know I took some criticism. You included for the unprotected chair shots, you know, and it's like, you know, just something that unless you're involved in that moment, like, you can't understand. Like, you know, it seems like the cool thing on, like, you know, the inside stuff now is to put down the unprotected chair shots, but I think to the average fan it is entertaining, and realistically I'm not going out there on a nightly basis and doing this. It was isolated matches, you know. For example, you know, the way I saw it, I'm a performer, but as I said before, a huge fan of wrestling itself, and we were doing what was always traditionally WCW's largest pay-per-view, Starrcade, and myself versus Terry Funk in a hardcore match. There was only one way to do it in my mind, and when I went home that night, was I sore? Yes. Was I banged up? Yeah, but in my mind, I went out there, I gave 100%, and I gave the fans a hardcore match. Like, aside from Terry, if I had to pick another person out that I really liked working with in this past year, I have to say Shane Douglas. Prior to wrestling here, we never worked before. We were in ECW together for a while, but we never managed to mix it up except for a small incident where he was calling out the locker room to let's take the TV title off of him, and I got kneed in the groin and like he pinned me 1, 2, 3. But you know, the first time me and Shane locked up, there's just certain guys you click really well with, and you're on the same page with as far as how you want to do the match. And both Shane and I, we wanted to give them a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of outside the ring, a little bit of borderline with the hardcore stuff. And I thought it came off well. I thought our timing worked out great together, and working with Shane was a real pleasure.
What for you right now, as far as like the future goes? Do you have a lot of independent dates booked? And if you don't get into the WWF right now, let's just say in the next 6 months it doesn't happen.
The big question.
What do you have like certain like plans, or are you pretty much? You know, and I know that you know you have a degree in physical therapy and things like that. I mean, what's kind of like your thoughts of the different thoughts? I mean, obviously, I would guess that going to WWF would be your number one thing if you could pick it. But if that doesn't happen,
sure.
What are your thoughts?
Sure. As of right now, I'm at a major crossroads as far as what the wrestling scene goes. Being on the independents as far as later performing goes is a great time. I love doing the shows, but honestly, if it comes down to having to travel 4 or 5 hours for a show to make a payday and support myself, that sort of takes the fun out of it a bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I really don't want to depend on the independent circuit to support myself. So, since I've been released, I've also started doing per diem work at the State General Hospital back home, where I worked full time before I got signed. So I'm currently active in my physical therapy field. Making those 4 or 5 hour trips aren't fun at all, but in the past, over the past 10 years, the thing that made it worth it was that I believed in my heart that I had a destination, in spite of the people saying I was too small, I was this, I was that. New Jersey isn't a territory, this or that. I knew in my heart, I believed in my ability, and I knew that I wanted to make it with one of the 2 major companies out there, and I succeeded in that. And through all those road trips, that goal kept me going. The pay was never great on independence, it never is, but that vision, that goal, that destination is what kept me going. Now, obviously, there's only one game in town. The WWF owns both WWF, WCW, and if I can't land a spot in there right now, it's obviously that's pretty much it for me. What I'm thinking about doing is, pursuing my physical therapy career and maybe doing a few independent shows locally, just to have a good time. Anything. I'm trying to think what would be the best way to say it. I would probably be retired from anything over a 2-hour call ride away. Because once you go past that, and even if you go and have a great match, you have that ride home over your head, and especially if I have to be to work on Monday morning at the hospital, it's not fun, you know. But if luckily, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York is like a good good indie area. There's a lot of shows going on, some good, some not so good. But probably if it doesn't work out, what I would do is resume my physical therapy practice and wrestle for fun whenever it wasn't that far away. The only person I would probably make the exception for a far ride would be for Jim Kettner's ECWA. He was one of the first guys that gave me a shot out there. His shows are run great, and whenever you participate there, it's like something special. He's definitely one of the best independent guys around, and he's definitely worth that extra drive.
One thing, when the thing happened not all that long ago, when they let you go, I mean, mentally, did you take it the way it was a really weird deal, because I don't think that it was any reflection at all on your ability. It was just sort of like some numbers game that somebody was doing, irregardless of talent, or, because I know getting fired from any job, or getting released is like a total drag. But I mean, did you take it as I don't know. How did you take that thing? I mean, it's turned out it really was almost a surprise.
It was definitely like a surprise, because a few weeks prior, Eric had pulled me aside and they had told me how much he had liked my work rate, this and that, and how they wanted to come up with a new character, something less, I guess, goofy. He thought my character was too common, too dark, basically, you said you do all this wild stuff, all these great technical moves, but you're dressed like a guy out of the front row. So, he had verbalized that he had some ideas for me, and then the next thing I knew, I was gone. Got a phone call from Johnny Ace, and they gave me the bad news. It was definitely a shock, but also Johnny explained it in a way that it was just strictly a business decision, given the numbers. And at that point in time there, they were in the middle of the deal. It wasn't completed, and if they wanted to sign anybody new up, they had to release some guys. So it was basically, I was just unlucky, I guess. Did I take it personally at first? Sure, like anybody would. I thought I worked hard in everything else, but now, also in hindsight, it was a business decision. Business decisions aren't always easy, and hopefully I'll bounce back from it. I really try and look at the positive of what happened. That happening there, enabled me to devote more time to being in the gym, getting in shape, and also it allowed me, to go back to the regular workforce and know that when wrestling is over, I'll be able to go back to normal, everyday 9 to 5 life.
Were you happy? Did it make you feel better coming off of this? The fact that there was a pretty decent outcry out there, where people were very supportive of you. Like a lot of guys, when they get let go, I mean, nobody says a peep, and it's sort of like good riddance. But when you were let go, especially on the internet, I mean, it was a pretty big deal, and a lot of people were second guessing the company that day.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things I was gonna bring up before I got off the line here. I just wanted to give a huge shout out. The fans, the emails that I received were overwhelming. There's 3 great girls out there that run 3 great fan websites. The support was unreal. They tried to rally the troops, and just internet writers, all over in general was just so supportive, and that meant a lot. Sometimes when you look at your position in a company, although I loved what I was doing, you wonder if your hard work is being noticed, if it's being appreciated by the people. And by that point in time, it was just a real wake-up call to know that one of my goals, which was to go out there and entertain the fans to the best of my ability, it was noticed, and I did do it.
And this is from Andy, who goes, got a question. Who are some of the best up-and-coming Northeastern indie workers that you've seen now that you're doing the indie scene again? And have you seen Low-Key work, and what do you think of him? We've heard a lot about him, and I have not seen him yet.
I actually had the opportunity for the first time to see Low-Key work at Jim Kettner's show, the ECWA. He was in a tag match. It was him and American Dragon, I believe, against the Haas brothers. And I'd heard a lot about him, but never really seen him work. And I think he lives up to the hype completely. I was very, very impressed with him. Great technical ability, great kicks, a hell of an athlete, and he's one of the guys that when I put myself in fan mode, enjoy to watch. You know, I thought it was phenomenal. Outside of him, like the New Jersey, the independent scene is loaded with guys. You got Judas Young, Inferno Kid, of course, my old partner Ace Darling. You know, he's a guy that's been around for a long time, just hasn't caught the right break. I think he's a great technical wrestler, you know, and just a lot of talent out there that just really needs to be discovered.
What did you think of American Dragon?
I thought he was excellent too. He had a great match. All four of the guys in that match was incredible. They put on a hell of a show. The Haas brothers as well, but I had seen them work before. I had seen the Dragon before, but it was the first time I'd ever seen Low-Key work, and he blew my doors off. I thought he was great.
Let's go to, is it Mark in Oklahoma first up?
Mike,
what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, bro?
Hey.
Yeah, this is Mike.
Yeah.
How's it going, Crowbar?
Good, man. Yourself?
All right.
Good to hear from you.
Dave, I can't believe people's calling in wanting Kevin Von Erich. That's just one I can't believe.
Times have changed.
Yeah.
That's not right.
Anyway, I was wondering if you had an official website.
Not yet. The 3 fan sites that are up there, they do a great job. I'm not sure the address is offhand. There's one called The Fabulous Disaster. This girl Jay Dragon does it fantastic. There's one on the net called Crowbar's Crypt, and there's also one called the Crowbar Devon Storm Tribute, and the girls do great work. But I actually don't have an official site yet.
All right. Okay, and how did your tryout go?
I thought it went pretty well. As I said, it all depends on what you're gauging. You know, for me, it felt great. It was 6 weeks before I was in the ring since my release, and I was antsy that whole time. I was down to do independence, but if I did, my last pay would get cut from WCW, so that wasn't possible. It felt great to walk through a curtain, walk down the aisle, and perform in front of a sold-out Philadelphia crowd there. And as I said before, I was pleasantly surprised by their reception. You know, it was overwhelming, and it felt great.
what kind of feedback did you get from the road agents?
Not much that night because they were running late with the show, and as you know, a lot of the guys behind the scenes are involved in the skit, so I really didn't get much feedback. The few feedbacks that I did get was was positive. They were happy with the match, but outside of that, I haven't heard anything since.
Okay, let's go to Ray in Connecticut. Ray, what's going on?
My question is for Crowbar. I got two questions, one for Crowbar and one for Dave.
Sure,
Crowbar, what was it like working with the Wall in WCW at a time where he was very green? I remember you took like a giant bump from I don't know if it was like a balcony or
took two of them.
some kind of high, some kind of sky high or something. I was like, this guy's wow, I can't believe he's doing this. What was it like working with the Wall though at a time where he was green though?
Okay, first let me go back with him. It was actually very special because my first match ever of all time when I was 17 at Iron Mike Sharp's Pro Wrestling School at that time was against a guy called Big John the Lumberjack. Jerry Toot, who's now known as The Wall, was about in front of 50 people, and going from there into a big WCW crowd, was it sold out? No, but it was huge, for us, and it was just really special to see how far we came from that little dingy gym to a mainstream wrestling show. The big bump was actually a lot of fun in a weird way. And whenever anybody asks me about the big bumps, what it feels like, and it's kind of a sick an explanation that I give to people. With the whole day before the bump, even if it's safe and even if the precautions are taken, there's always a shot that something might go wrong, and it's enough to keep you nervous the entire day. They got butterflies the whole day. You'll walk out to the bump site a few times, look up, see how high it is. You might climb up to the bump site and look down, which is usually worse.
Looking down's worse.
And and then it comes time the show starts, and you start to get even more nervous about it. And then with the time ticks down, so it's your spot, and then you're waiting behind the curtain finally, and it's time to go out there to finally do it. You know, there's no turning back, and you go out there. You do it, your heart's racing 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're breathing heavy because you're so excited, and then when you finally just, you do it, you're scared to death, and then when you finally land, you hit, you move your fingers, you move your toes to see you're okay, the crowd pops. It's just such a rush. It's such a feeling. There's nothing like it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I don't mind doing that as part of my repertoire. It's a sick rush, I guess. You know, I like the technical wrestling. I like the high-flying stuff, the hardcore stuff. But when you throw the big bump out there, it's it's just a mental rush, and it doesn't compare to anything. You know, not a roller coaster ride, not bungee jumping, not anything. Because bungee jumping, you could turn back. With roller coaster, you could get up there, and at the last second, decide not to get on. But when you're going out there for the show, there's no turning back, and you have to do this. And it's just a real rush. You know, to get back to the balcony bump, that was actually off the Nitro Vision thing. It was off the side. We had the stage fabricated that I landed on. That was definitely the highest one. It was like 18 feet or something like that. But the thing about that was it was just a free fall. The fall with Shane Douglas was a free fall. There was a target, and all I had to do was be put in the right spot. Hands down, the most dangerous one was the first bump, the one through the announcer's table, and that one really took a lot of practice, and that was really the most nervous fall of all, because the time when we did that, the announce table was about 6-7 feet away from the ring, and both of us had to go up and out and land smack dead in the middle of that table. There was really no room for error. And Jerry Toots a hell of a strong guy, and if anybody could put me in the right spot, I knew it was him. I've known him personally for so long, so I really trusted him, and that was definitely the most dangerous one. Wasn't the highest one, but it was definitely, I think, took the most skill with the most timing, because both bodies had to be in complete sync, go up and out 6 feet. The other two are a lot higher, but they were just free falls down.
Now, did anybody ever ask you to do anything that you really didn't want to do, but you felt that if you said no to it, you might lose your job, so you did it anyway?
Absolutely not. You know, the first time they came up to me with the whole announce table idea, it was before I had taken any big bumps, and I was a little bit skeptical at first. And but I saw the potential there. You know, my character was there, but I wanted to do something to really break out of the common pack and really do something to excite a show at that time that really wasn't doing a lot of exciting stuff. And the first bump, as I said, probably more so than the two free falls, it was the first one, so it was very frightening. But after I hit, you saw the reaction. It became addictive, I guess.
Have any of these bumps? I mean, were there any of them where you got hurt on, or was, as far as the pain, pretty much manageable from any of them, from all of them?
Pain is manageable. The only one that I had the most lingering one from was when Shane threw me off the balcony. Wasn't his fault or my fault, but I rotated so much that I hit the table, which really broke the majority of my fall, but I rotated to a point where my ankle / heel hit the floor, so there was a rotation component there. So my heel hit, and it was totally black and blue, but it was nothing that kept me out of action, you know.
Let's go to Budnick in Oklahoma. Budnick, what's up?
I just wanted to ask Crowbar, you're all talking about the Terry Funk promo earlier, and I remember during that promo, Daphne was behind you making all these silly faces. Mm-hmm. I just want to know if that made you mad, or if you talked to her about that.
No, it didn't make me mad at all.
Made me mad. Anyway, go ahead.
It all depends on how you look at it. You know, like a part of me that's into the seriousness sees how like she could have been more serious, but then at the same time, that's her character, you know. Her character is a complete loon. She's a complete wacko. And if you look at it in that sense, a character like Daphne wouldn't comprehend a serious situation from like a non-serious situation. Well, then again, neither would CROWBAR, but the character evolved over the past year, going from a complete goof, then near the end it got more serious. So, but I think Daphne stayed like a complete psycho and loon. So, like, even though it may have taken away from the seriousness of the seriousness of the moment, rather, that was her character, and that's what Daphne would do.
Okay.
Anything else, Budnick?
I got one more quick question. I don't know if CROWBAR was there during the DDP Scott Steiner fight.
Good.
Were you there during the DDP Scott Steiner thing?
I was in the building, but I didn't see it. I was actually back. I believe that night I had a match with Bam Bam, which actually got put together at the last second. So we were scrambling to sort of put that together, and I missed it.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, let's go to Bob. Bob, what's up?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Bob, what's going on?
Not too much. Quick question for you.
Absolutely.
Do you have a favorite opponent that you've ever worked against?
Favorite opponent? Like I said, it's tough because there's so many different matches. I usually prefer bigger guys, because I could do all the aerial stuff to sort of even the ties a little bit, but then always end up taking the big bumps, so that's kind of fun. But at the same time, I like technical matches. If I had to pick one match, as I said before, hands down would be Chris Benoit. It's because I was a huge fan of his, and just being able to be in the same ring with him was absolutely awesome. You know, if I had to pick one, it would be him.
I could understand that. The other quick question was, oh boy, I'm a little nervous, so I forgot. On a closing note, everybody in Rutherford says hi. Everybody from the faculty at the high school.
Oh, fantastic.
I told a couple people that you were going to be on the show today.
Huh?
I told a couple people you would be on the show.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Tell them all I said hey.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, what year did you graduate?
92.
Okay. Chris, thanks a lot. Dave and Brian.
No sweat. Thanks so much for the call in.
Take care.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Have you wrestled at your old high school before?
Twice, actually. We came back. Actually 3 times for independent shows.
Was it pretty fun? And did a lot of people who you went to high school with come to the shows?
Oh, absolutely. The thing about that is, going through high school, I wasn't really a geek, but I wasn't really the real popular guy. I was sort of in the middle. I did well in school, but at the same time, I played football, so I sort of got along with everybody, but wasn't really in that in crowd, the over crowd. But and
like Kevin Nash.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was 15, 16, 17, and I started verbalizing the fact that I wanted to be like a pro wrestler to friends and teachers, and then I walked into my guidance counselor and I said, I want to be a pro wrestler, but I also want to go to school for physical therapy. They looked at me like I had 3 heads. And as well as my peers.
Actually, when it comes to that was pretty darn smart. Really, because you had something to fall back on, and you did well with the pro wrestling. So it's
absolutely. They just
screw them.
They just assume though that with the curriculum that it takes to be a PT, if I were to try to do something like pro wrestling or actually any other kind of extracurricular activity, I wouldn't have enough time to devote to this. With the book work and the studies required. So they pretty much said, maybe you should think of doing something else. So on the flip side, it's kind of cool that when I went to school with all these people that laughed at me and basically said, that was the time when you watched WWF, it was all enhancement matches, and they go, you're gonna be one of those Joe Smith guys, that goes out there and just get killed, and
yeah, like Mick Foley.
Granted, my win-loss record isn't the best, but I've established a character out there, and I feel I feel I've succeeded at what I've done. Like I said, it was 10 years. But I had a vision, I had a destination where I wanted to get to, and in spite of everyone else, I made it.
And now, as far as like before WCW, was there anything like a career highlight that you had? Was it Sabu matches or anything like that?
When it comes to independent shows, I would hands down say the Sabu matches. Then shortly thereafter, I had the match on Monday Nitro with Conan. That was back when it was an hour long, and like I shared a show with Hulk Hogan and Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, which was great. Then I went to ECW for about 10 months, and I have to say my highlight there was it never got televised there, but I had a hell of a match with Mikey Whipwreck on 2 occasions, and that was just an absolute blast. And then from there, we had those 2 famous matches on Nitro as the Extreme Team, where myself and Ace got killed 2 weeks in a row. And I was sort of afraid to show my face around town for about a year. And then from there, Jim Cornette called me in for the light heavyweight division, and that was a huge highlight. You know, it was technically the first ever WWF light heavyweight tournament, and I got to be a part of it. You know, and like all this was going on while I was still in school. It was overwhelming, and at that time I was involved in my physical therapy curriculum, and I would have to cut class to fly out and sort of get notes and like everything else, and sort of still pull the grades. So it was kind of nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it was wouldn't change it for anything.
That had to be pretty tough because you were doing a lot of wrestling on weekends and things like that while you were going to school and taking full load.
And they hated it. Let me tell you, like the people that usually get into PT school are these guys that are too smart for their own good, really book smart, and there is a limited number of spots out there. The year I applied for like a physical therapy school, they received 700 applications and they took 32. So when I started disappearing, like to go to these wrestling shows, and the word got around, like I was hearing these really smart, well-to-do kids saying that basically a spot was wasted on me, that that I wouldn't make a good therapist because I was donating too much of my time to my wrestling game. So I basically, I kept to myself there outside of a small handful, maybe 3 or 4 friends. So that made it kind of tough too.
We are totally out of time. I want to thank you very much for doing this, and sometime when you have more time,
absolutely,
we'd love to continue this. We'd love to continue this.
Well, let's set this up. It's been great being on, and like I said, thank you, and all the fans out there, man. The support was so appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome, and best of luck, and we'll be talking to you soon. And we will be back here with Chris Pope, who did a book, The Good, the Bad, and the Collectible, 100 Years, the Encyclopedia of Professional Wrestling. I have not seen the book, but we will talk about the book and wrestling collectibles. If you're into collectibles, he's the expert, Chris Pope. We'll have him tomorrow at 5. Reasons of that team, which is tremendous for soccer. But anyway, it's been tremendous for the XFL if it was all paid too. But anyway, that reminds me of something too. This is like now we're getting totally away from wrestling, but there was a day. You remember, Brian? You don't know this either. We're talking sports. Okay. Anyway, there was a baseball strike. One of the years that one of the times I was working for the Earthquakes, there was a baseball strike. So there were no games, and so all the baseball writers and the major sports personalities remind me to get back to the Monday Night Story because there is actually a payoff in all this. But anyway, so all the sports personalities that had no idea what soccer was, even though we were drawing, 13 to 17,000 a game, they grew up with baseball and football. They only knew that. They never went to a soccer game. The fact that soccer actually, at that point in time, was actually kind of popular in this market, it meant nothing to them because they didn't grow up with it, even though and our games were filled with kids, because that's what it was marketed towards. Well, anyway, a bunch of them, there was a guy, Pete Liebengood, who was a guy on Channel 4, comes up to me, and he came down for a game. There were like 15,000, 16,000 people on a Sunday afternoon, which is what we drew every Sunday afternoon when we had a game, right? And he just goes, and the building holds like Spartan Stadium where they played held like 18,000, so it's just about sold out, okay? And we frequently sold out the games. So he comes up to me and he goes, now that there's no baseball, everyone's coming to soccer. Okay. So anyway, let me go back to the Monday story, which actually will have to do with wrestling in two ways. Number one, they never drew on Monday nights, and the promoter also worked in the front office of the Earthquakes with me, and he came up to me, and he didn't really know I was a wrestling fan much, but he knew because I would sometimes show up at the matches. He came up to me and he just goes, "It's just death. We can't promote. You know what the problem is?" And I go, "Yeah, you have no talent. All the good talent is the stuff that people see on Georgia Championship Wrestling because that's when it was hot, and that's what the people want to see here. And unfortunately, you can't afford to bring them in. You're bringing in these guys that nobody wants to see, so no one's going." He goes, and he just looks at me. And he just goes, "No, it's Monday night. You can't draw for sporting event on Monday night because of Monday Night Football." And I go, "Well, what about those 39 weeks of the year where there is no Monday Night Football?" Okay? So, anyway. But I mean, the thing that I thought in McMahon's thing is, and think about this, okay? His statement was that next season they are going to broadcast all of their games at 1 and 4 p.m. on Sundays, because that is the traditional football time slot.
Oh,
okay?
Yes.
Okay, now, but think about this. They broadcasted games every week this past season at 1 and 4 p.m. on Sundays. And what ratings did they draw?
Hideous.
So why would that be? The ratings were, let's see, the last UPN rating for the playoff game the other night, which would be the last game that they air, did an 0.7, okay? So they do less than half on Sunday nights of what they do on Saturday nights, okay? Which somehow, even to this day, I still get letters from people going like, "Hey, what was that letter? The one did you read the one the other day? The one that was trying to explain why Sunday's also now a bad night?"
Oh, yeah, the whole weekend was a bad time for sporting events.
The weekend is
so bad. It wasn't just Sunday or Saturday. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, and you know what's? I'm going to say that one more thing about that. I hate excuses, but when they used to run wrestling every Monday night in San Jose when I was in high school, okay, and this would be, and they drew horribly because we had a very poor promotion that was running here for the most part. Although Perro Aguayo used to come all the time, but that's before anyone up here who knew who Perro Aguayo was, even though he was a legend in Mexico. But they drew really poorly, and the promoter worked with me. The guy who promoted the shows worked with me on the San Jose Earthquakes, which was a soccer team that I worked in the front office for one season. And he would go, "You know what the problem
San
is?"
Jose Earthquakes?
What about, you don't know about this? You don't know about sports.
I think that's a funny name for a sporting team in California. I'm sure that's why they named it that.
Actually, I think the team is called the Earthquakes again. They were called something else.
There's a minor league baseball team that's out in California. I believe they're the Rancho Cucamonga
Earthquakes. Yeah. And but I think there was San Jose Clash, I think is what they were called, and then they changed their name to the Earthquakes because the Earthquakes is the traditional name. Because actually, when I was working there, they drew tremendous crowds. I mean, we averaged somewhere between 13,000 and 17,000 per game, for the first 3 or 4 seasons. How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling. We've got Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly here, and we're going to have Chris Ford, CROWBAR, Devin Storm. He's all of the above. He'll be up here in about a half an hour, formerly of WCW, and we'll be talking about the landscape of professional wrestling. He recently had a WWF tryout, so we can talk about he's going to wrestle. He's wrestling all over the indies right now. It's a physical therapy degree. We can talk a little bit about that as well. Just all of that good stuff.
Actually, guys, just wanted to jump in real quick. We'll probably have him sometime around 6. He's actually on his way in from New Jersey into New York City right now. He's got some benefit thing that he's doing. He called me twice. He told me, "I know you had a no-show this week. I will be on. Don't worry." So we may have him probably towards the top of the next hour.
Okay, cool. Well, glad we know that. Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. I guess we will start with the big news, and that is that the scheduled relaunching of the WCW brand name has been postponed indefinitely. It was originally supposed to be starting back on TNN on June the 9th and live at the Patriot Center in Fairfax, Virginia on June the 9th. And they had dates booked. They had dates booked for the whole month of June, and all of those dates have now been canceled, and there is no scheduled relaunch date right now. So I think it's a concession to reality. I think that they recognize that you don't get a second chance to make a first impression in that time slot. I think they learned from the XFL that you better be ready rather than get out there on a certain deadline. And clearly, They didn't feel that they were going to be ready on June the 9th. Things coming together very slowly. And Jim Ross is down in Atlanta right now, meeting with different people. And I think maybe the feeling is that enough of those guys, they're going to be able to get them at some point, and why start without them? I guess that's the only thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating on the reasons why. I was just told basically about an hour ago that they canceled all the dates and that there is no start date for that new division.
I think it's a smart thing to do. I mean, we talked about it before when they first moved the date. You know, why start? You know, why rush into it, especially with a time slot like that, especially when, you know, everybody pretty much knows that Goldberg's going to be really important and probably Ric Flair. And, I mean, they don't even know if they have Booker T yet or anything like that. And they got 24 guys. It's just kind of interesting that after one day of meetings, this decision came down. But I guess, you know, the meetings probably had nothing to do with it. It was probably something they've been thinking about for a while.
I think it was one of those things where, you know, hey, it's 7 weeks to go, and, you know, we have nobody under contract that's a main eventer.
Yeah.
And TBS is dragging its feet, and, you know, and they, you know, I mean, you know, I think some of those names that you mentioned, I think that they're just, the reality is they're not going to get. But, you know, maybe they're going to, you know, they've got to make a decision too. You know, and Bill Goldberg's a key decision to make, because it's a big financial, what's the word I'm looking for? To take
investment.
Him. You know, it's a big investment to take him, but by not taking him, you're kind of telling the fans the story that we really don't have the WCW A team. We can have a better team, but we're not going to spend for it. And I don't know that that's the right decision to. I don't know if the fans will think of it that way, but, you know, he will be noticed not being there. I mean, it'll be a void. And so, and, you know, people will be asking questions as to why, and the reason why is that they're not willing to spend the money. And it's a lot of money, I mean, especially right now. So, but, and, you know, I mean,
I seriously think that in the end, they're going to take him. And my two reasons for that are, A, they made an exception for the Big Show of all people. It wasn't an exception as big as Goldberg's, obviously, but it was an exception. And they figured that he was a guy that had a huge upside.
They thought they had Andre the Giant. Ended up being a huge
backside. What was that?
They thought they had Andre the Giant, and then they realized about 2 weeks in that they didn't.
Yeah, so, I mean, they made an exception for him. I don't see why they couldn't make another exception for Goldberg when they really think that it's going to be $3 million a year, but without Goldberg, what's that company going to make? You know, what's the profit going to be? Can they really create? I mean, is it really going to be something that people are going to watch if they expect Goldberg to be there? He's never there. I mean, it's going to be something where, in the long run, that $3 million may be the best investment that they can make for that company.
They'll realize, the fans will realize by the third week that he's not there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're not going to be, you know, if he's not, because one of the things the WWF will do is they won't mention his name, and once they don't mention his name, people go, aha, he's not there. I mean, they're not going to go in there and say, oh, by the way, Bill Goldberg is coming soon when he's not under contract, and then after about 8 weeks, people go, hey, when's he coming? And then realize, you know, they're not going to build people up for something that they're not going to deliver, usually. They did make that exception on that one night when Vince did that interview where he was talking about all those guys that he wasn't planning on delivering. I thought that is so not WWF to do that.
You know what, though? If you ever look at some of the letters that we receive, and I guess letters that pretty much everybody receives, now that Vince has said the name Goldberg, even one time, till the end of time, people will always be expecting Goldberg to finally come in.
Yeah. Some of the letters we receive. It's a very interesting thing. Let's see. Also want to make mention that in the LA Times, Vince McMahon did an interview with the LA Times and said that NBC would not be back for the second season of the XFL. And didn't really say much more other than that the league would continue. And I think that what I found so interesting about that is remember it was Russian Malloy who had the big thing, and it's been written before, you know, that NBC had already made the decision. You know, by the third week of the season, I had gotten, you know, emails from people close to NBC going like, you know, just so you know, they've already made the decision. I mean, it's like the third week of the season they were telling me that. I mean, it didn't work as a Saturday night property. And, you know, all through this time, everyone's denying, right? Even Bob Wright, what was the last time? Wasn't it like 2 weeks ago? It was the day after the Russian Malloy thing where Bob Wright was out there saying, oh, no, you know, we're going to be back next year. We have everyone, and I'm just thinking, like, remember on the show, I go, why is he even saying this? Because we all knew by then that, you know, they certainly had made the decision. There's no way they could bring that thing back for next season.
Yeah.
Brian, by the way, did you see the L.A. article? I sent it over to you, or you have a chance to see the
No, I
show?
didn't get it yet.
Okay. I got to tell you, it had the same stuff that in every article I send you, about the XFL, about how, the Saturday night ratings aren't good, but, UPN and TNN ratings are. And it's like, how long do we have to read that?
Yeah. What do they consider a bad rating at this point?
Well, no, it's not that. It's that, none of the writers actually look the number up, because the NBC numbers got so much publicity that you can't fudge on them. But the other numbers got no publicity, especially the TNN numbers. Because they're almost impossible to come by. But, if you look for them, you can find them. And nobody bothers to look except for Alex Marvez and me.